Welcome to the Sports Umbrella, where we cover all aspects of sports. Soak in all the knowledge from our guests who range from pro athletes playing up a storm to industry experts making it rain. My name's Kelly Okun, and I'm a former pro golfer and founder and CEO of Fairway to Green, an equitable sports media company. Joining us this episode, presented by GalwayPlus, is Mollie Marcoux Samaan, the former LPGA Commissioner and an active advocate for women's sports. Mollie shares her story and passion for building a fan base for women's sports and increasing its investment opportunities. Mollie, thank you so much for joining us today. LPGA Commissioner just left that post. Can you tell me your journey to get there and what you're up to now?
To get to the LPGA?
Yep.
Yeah, I've worked my whole career in sports. I knew from the minute I picked up a hockey stick or kicked a soccer ball that sports was my passion, and that when I figured out that I could make a career of sports, that was really where my focus was. So I pretty much knew that I wanted to work in sports from a very early age. Obviously loved playing sports and played 2 sports in college, and then really went to the Lawrenceville School after college because I was still trying to play a little bit of ice hockey. The national teams were just getting formed and the Olympics was in the horizon, and so I coached and worked in admissions and worked in athletic administration. And then I spent 20 years working in youth sports at Chelsea Piers in New York City and Connecticut, and that was an unbelievable experience for wonderful bosses who really mentored me in the world of sports, amateur sports, but also, in New York City, we got to really put on big, high-powered events with, really interesting people that we worked with, and I got to work in all facets of that business, and then started a new company up in Connecticut, Chelsea Piers, Connecticut. And from there, then I went to Princeton as the athletic director, again, having never really worked in college athletics. So that was a sort of a left turn in my career that I wasn't expecting, but I'd gone to school there, and they were looking for an AD, and that was an unbelievable experience, to be able to work with amazing coaches who really have the right commitment to education through athletics, amazing student athletes, and obviously, I'm biased, but the #1 university in the world. So did that for 7 years, and then the LPGA called, and obviously hadn't worked in professional sports and hadn't worked in golf. But it was such an amazing opportunity to take the lead at the longest standing women's sports league that's had tremendous success for 75 years, that has a great mission, and to do it at a time when I really felt mindsets had really finally started to change around women's sports, and people were seeing that not only was the product great and that it was a good thing for society, for women's sports to succeed, but that there was great commercial value in it as well. So really got that position right at, I think, a critical moment in women's sports, and I did that for 3.5 years, and really proud of what we accomplished. And now I'm doing a bunch of things in all 3 of those areas: youth sports, college sports, and women's sports. And it's been awesome to be able to meet amazing people, which we can talk about.
Yeah, and just from your experience of being an athlete and then working in so many different sides of sports, what skill set did you glean from those that allowed you to enter a new sport like golf and the LPGA?
Yeah, we all know the sort of individual skills, I think, that you develop by being an athlete, whether it's hard work, teamwork, resilience, all those things. And I believe in that to my core, and it's sort of the thing I believe in most, particularly for young girls. But I think the other thing that sports did for me is it just gave me a lot of confidence of, sort of a risk-taking ability to try new things, ability to fail and jump back and try again. And I don't think without that confidence developed through playing sports that I would have been able to be in really difficult situations and hard jobs, and sort of just have the confidence that you might not make the perfect decision, but you can do the best you can, and then you'll fix it if it's not the right decision. So I think I attribute any success that I've had to being an athlete, and to really caring about that and developing skills through that, and mostly developing confidence and resilience.
Yes, and all of those are so important, and I feel like there's also a team aspect. Even in golf, when I was playing, I felt like I had a team. I had my parents, I had my coaches, my trainers, my sports psychologist. What sort of team did you have supporting you while you were in this role?
Yeah, I think everyone who knows me knows that my favorite word in the English language is team. If you have a great team, and I think the teams mean everything: your family, your group of friends, your community, the people that you work with, that's your team. And if you approach life like you want to be the best member of whatever team you're on, and that you're going to put the team first, things always work out for you. And I think that's really what I've leaned back on, is to say, I'm going to try to be a great teammate. I'm not going to make the best decisions all the time or the perfect decisions, but I'm going to make a decision that I think is good for the team, and not necessarily perfect for myself. I'm going to put the team first. So I really stress that to people that I mentor, to my own kids. So I've had some amazing teams. First of all, it starts with your family. I had an amazing family growing up. My parents didn't play sports. They weren't, that wasn't their passion, but they knew that it was my passion. And so they supported me along the way and did it really well, I think, as sports parents. And, obviously my family, my husband and my 3 kids and my brothers and sisters and, extended family. I think that's your first and most important team. And then, again, as I said, Lawrenceville was a great place to work. Chelsea Piers was a great place to work, an amazing team that I'm still so close with. I've been working with the owners of Chelsea Piers on a few things actually since I left the LPGA. And then the LPGA, really one of our core values was team and putting the team first. And really, if you wake up every day and say, okay, my job is to make this team better, whatever that team is, I think you tend to do pretty well in life.
Yeah, and you've had huge success at the LPGA. You increased the purse sizes over 90%. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's such an impressive stat. And I know a lot of your agenda really focused on the well-being of the player. How did you see that play out for women's golf in general and the players? Did you see the impact of those agenda items?
Yeah, and I'm really passionate about the intersection between the sporting side of an organization, particularly whether it's a college athletic program or a professional sports team or league, the intersection between the sporting side and the sporting environment, the performance environment, and the commercial side. When you're running a professional sports league or a team, you really have to connect those two because I think one leads to the other. So one of our core pillars and one of the things we really worked on was to try to create the best possible performance environment for the LPGA athletes. It's actually, golf well, it's hard being out on tour. There is in every tour because the travel, and the LPGA is particularly hard because we travel all over the world. I think I traveled 170 days last year. The athletes maybe not quite that much, but close. And I think we played in 15 states and 10 different countries. And so, creating, at least thinking about how that athlete feels being on an airplane for 15 hours or 20 hours when they arrive to play, to put this little ball in a small little hole and perform at the highest level of the sport. It's really hard. I'm not sure we made it to where, we definitely didn't get to where I'd want to get it, but I think we made huge improvements. Even little things like making sure that we had the ability for the athletes to bring their private physio into a space where they could stretch and do their workout before their round. That didn't exist before. Really thinking about how we traveled them around the country. It's still not perfect or around the world, but to really think about the geographic flow, thinking about the time zones. It's very hard, as you know, to adjust your body quickly to a new time zone and then all of a sudden have to tee it up and play the best players in the world. So, and there were so many more things focused on nutrition, we got sports psychology at the LPGA. We didn't have a sports psychologist. We actually hired a great woman named Dr. Julie who worked with me at Princeton, and we brought her out on the tour. And a lot of the athletes actually attributed some of their success to working with Dr. Julie. It's so expensive to be out on the LPGA. The top athletes can hire their own physios and they can hire their own mental coaches or their own sports psychologists. But the athletes that are just trying to make it out there, I felt it was really our responsibility to try to give them as much as we could give them from a performance standpoint. Again, still a lot of room to go. Today, here at some of the panels, I loved hearing, and I'd heard this before and I knew they were doing it, but to hear what they're doing in Portland, building a purpose-built training facility for the WNBA and the NWSL athletes. I think it's 75,000 square feet, all latest and greatest technology for sports performance, that the athletes from both teams will be in community together, thinking about how they can reach their peak performance. I think that is absolutely critical. And that intersection, if you have athletes that are reaching their peak, that will help your commercialization of the team or the league. So they're not separate. Sometimes they compete with each other a bit, and I think that will always be a tension point in professional sports. But my mindset, and even at Princeton, was like, how do we provide that environment for our athletes? It's really our number one goal, to make sure they can reach their peak performance. Again, still work to go, but I think we made good progress.
Yeah, definitely great strides. I know when I was interviewing one of my friends, she had just graduated from the Epson Tour to get her LPGA card for the second time. And she was talking about how Epson had just come on to sponsor the Epson Tour, and they took $50 off the entry fee. And to everyone else, that seems like nothing. But to them, it was a hot meal. It was gas to get to the next place. They could stay in a hotel. There's just so much that goes on behind the scenes. Like you said, to your point about they could travel for 20 hours and then all of a sudden they have to go play. There's just so much going on that I think the public just doesn't see in the golf side.
And they don't make any money unless you make the cut. I don't think people understand that either. So there's so much pressure, particularly when you're not at the top of the leaderboard and you're scrambling to just make sure you don't lose money that week, let alone make money, which is your job. So, taking $50 off the entry fee, we ended up, I think we got to $150 off the original entry fee reduction, which again, we'd like that to be free. but it's expensive. So you have to pay for the entry fee for the tournament. You got to pay for your caddy, your flight or your gas to get there, the hotel or wherever you're lodging. It adds up. And so for every athlete, it adds up. And people don't realize that, and again, if you're on a team, those things are generally provided for you. But if you're an individual athlete, if you're a golfer, you don't have that. This year, too, at the end of my tenure, we made a big announcement that we were giving all of the athletes 100% free health care, which was a very big thing that we've been working on for a long time. And because a lot of athletes, shockingly, wouldn't have health insurance. We had given them stipends. When I started, I think we were giving them $1,800. We gave them then $3,000, and then in 2024, we gave them $4,000 towards health insurance. Not all of them even took it because the additional amount that they wanted to spend was not an expense they wanted to incur. So making it 100% free, we wanted to get 100% participation for all of the athletes, so they would use it for precautionary, preventative medicine, but also if anything happens to them, make sure that they've got really strong health care.
That's amazing. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no, it was a big team effort for sure, but I think that was a big step.
GalwayPlus is the proud sponsor of the Sports Umbrella. GalwayPlus Sports and Entertainment is the first of its kind platform in the wealth and risk management sectors designed to cater to the diverse needs of affluent individuals, teams, leagues, and organizations operating within the sports and entertainment industries. Learn more at GalwayPlus.com. I know, at least from my experience, when I would train, I would be with usually the men. There weren't as many women in Florida where I was, at least in the city I was in. And their entry fees were usually covered. I felt like they were showing up with new sponsors on their bag every day. How do you think the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour could collaborate a little bit better? I almost envision almost like a tennis partnership where there's just a little more equity and parity. How do you foresee that happening, if at all, between the two tours?
Yeah, I think there's good relationships between the two tours for sure. They are very separate. That's one of the really unique things about the LPGA is that there's not a men's league that is supporting it. And for 75 years, the LPGA has been a successful standalone organization. We have the Grant Thornton Invitational, which was something everybody had been hoping for a long time, and we were able to launch that a couple of years ago. We've now played 2 iterations of it, which is amazing to see the men and the women together and how much fun they had and how much respect they have for each other. I think the men were blown away by the talent of the athletes, and the women performed extremely well. So I think the big thing is, how do we use the men's platform to give more exposure to the women? Because it's all that we really need. The athletes speak for themselves, their talent speaks for themselves, but in women's sports, you often don't have the infrastructure to be able to market and really get the viewership that you need, because you don't have the resources to do it. You don't have enough staff, you don't have the technology, you don't have the dollars for paid media, and then you tend to not be on at the exact right times. You sort of get the second shift. And so all of those things together, the more the men can help elevate the platform of the women, the better, and the more collaboration there can be. If you could do a big event like tennis does together, it's obviously more complicated with golf and one golf course, but there's ways to do it, and there's been lots of conversations about it. Can they play the President's Cup together? Can Ryder Cup and Solheim Cup match each other in some way or work together? I think those are all really interesting ideas that I hope they continue to pursue, because I just think if fans got to know the LPGA athletes better, that would elevate everything. In professional sports, it really starts and ends with the fans. What you're trying to do is acquire more fans, and you need money, resources, and investment in order to do that. So that's a big focus.
Yeah, and that's something I'm doing too with Fairway to Green, is just storytelling about the individual players, trying to grow the fan base and grow that emotional connection with them, because people know Nelly Korda's name, but they might not know a lot about her, or I feel like there's so many players that are still unknown to the fan base, but everyone knows Scottie Scheffler, everyone knows Rory McIlroy. So how do we elevate that storytelling to match that? And then
and it's all investment. It's really, again, it's not out of a lack of interest in the public. It's out of a lack of resources to market the athletes to the public. It's expensive and it's competitive. There's a lot of other people that are trying to put content out. It's a very competitive environment, and so you really need to, first of all, you need to have data. You need to have performance data. First of all, golf fans love performance data, so you have to have the right technology to be able to capture the right data, which is very expensive. And then you have to be able to capture the data of your fans, so then you can market to them. We struggle with that, and making sure that we went to a single ticket platform that we had never had, trying to get all of our tournaments on the same ticket platform, to be able to then market to them and have two-way communication back and forth with our fans, both through the website and through direct marketing and other content that we put out. that is how you build a fan base, and it's not cheap to do. It's expensive, and it's a long-term investment, but that's really what you need to do in professional sports, is have more fans, which then drives your media rights deals, it drives your sponsorship deals. So it kind of starts and ends with fans.
It does, and I don't know if you, as commissioners, do you come in with an agenda and different priorities? Do you have any idea what Craig Kessler is doing or will want to do when he takes over?
I mean, I'm sure he'll have to listen and learn and sort of see what he thinks is, the direction to take it. I think, again, our focus was on the performance environment. It was on the fans, really modernizing the organization. It was, we didn't have a marketing team. We didn't have a lot of staff selling. We needed to kind of, I would say, modernize the organization. And again, the most important thing was getting the best tournaments on the schedule to have the athletes make as much money as they possibly can. That's really what our mission is. We're a member organization. So to go from 70 million in purses to 130 million with, I think, a pretty good schedule, not perfect. It's still, I think there's still ways to make that schedule better. I don't think more is more. I think it's about kind of what we tried to do is have 3 or 4 tournaments and then a break, and have the break be when the men's majors are playing. So the fans are sort of focused on the men's game. We're not competing. It didn't happen all across the board, but really have 3 or 4 tournaments, have a break, 3 or 4 tournaments, have a break, so athletes can recover properly. It's just really a grind out there. So we really thought through that. And I think those were the things that we really tried to focus on. Also, like you, I feel very strongly of the platform that the LPGA has and these sports leagues have to not just elevate young female golfers, but to elevate young girls and women through our foundation and through the great programs that we put on through girls golf and through our teaching professionals. And so I'm really proud that we focused on raising more money to be able to give golf to more girls. And I think that's a critical component of not only our responsibility, but I think it then creates super fans, which again helps drive the tours, all the Epsom Tour and the LPGA Tour, and obviously the European Tour as well. So the Ladies European Tour.
I wholesomely agree with that.
Yeah, I know that's your passion, that's your commitment. And, I always say, if you have young girls, you should put them in sport, whether they are ever going to be a great athlete, but what they learn from that is more valuable than anything else you can do. Obviously, I believe in putting them in piano and making sure they're great at school and making sure they're good people, but I think giving girls that confidence that they can do hard things and that they can be a part of a team and they can have the confidence to put themselves out there in a sporting environment, I think is critical. I think the statistic is somewhere 90% of C-suite women played sports, at least in high school, which is a pretty telling statistic, and people should really take note of that.
I use that stat all the time because if you can get them into sports, they can thrive wherever they go next. And if that's in business, it's clearly working in business, but I'm sure it works in other fields as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Where you're heading next? You said you are in junior sports or youth sports, you're in college sports. What are you doing now that you're, in addition to all the golfing and playing tennis,
and spending
time with family?
Yeah, I've been, I think it's really critical, and this is something that, when you're in a really taxing job and traveling so much, it's easy to sort of put your physical health maybe to the side. And I certainly did that over the last 3.5, 4 years, where I wasn't working out as much, I wasn't sleeping as well, I wasn't eating as well. And I think that's a mistake, so I'm really trying to make sure that people that I'm mentoring and that my own kids, and they really focus on your physical and mental health as the most important thing that you can do to then be able to reach your own peak performance. So it's been awesome. I mean, I've worked in sports for 35 years, so I haven't really put that first, and I've raised 3 kids with my husband, and they've always been our priority. And now they're a little older, 2 kids in college. I still have one in high school, and he's going into his junior year. So being able to spend time with him, but also being able to play some tennis. I've been playing quite a bit of tennis, play some golf. But I'm also working on some really great projects. I've had the ability to meet amazing people who are really driving the women's sports landscape, whether it's in soccer or in some of the new leagues that are popping up, working in private equity and trying to see how we can get more investment into women's sports. That's been really fun. I'm working with this great project out in Indiana that's developing a youth sport facility with a total focus on girls sports, 8 to 18. And in addition to going and playing in tournaments and camps, there'll be a whole leadership and performance curriculum that athletes that come through with their teams to play in a tournament will also be educated on leadership skills, on physiological, psychological behaviors that lead to peak performance. It's a really interesting concept. So I'm helping them raise some capital, thinking about the programming. It's a great team that they have. It's called the Marvella Project outside of Indianapolis. So I've been working on that, again, thinking about college sports, just on a panel here today about college sports. That's a really complicated arena right now, and there's sort of a lot of growth potential and a lot of new businesses propping up sort of supporting college athletics. And my husband and I bought this little sports complex with a partner in Pennsylvania, and we're developing that. So I'm doing a lot of entrepreneurial stuff, some consulting, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm super grateful for my time at the LPGA and at Princeton and the experiences and at Chelsea Piers and at Lawrenceville, but this has been a nice time. I'm calling it a little bit of halftime, sort of assessing how the first half of my career, my life has gone, and kind of what's the next half. But it's been fun, and being down here in Cabo and with amazing people in the sports world. I've learned so much today from other leaders and was honored to be on a panel, and I've been doing quite a bit of speaking too, and so it's been fun.
Yeah, no idle hands with you.
No. I have been slowing down. I haven't traveled 170 days, but I have been traveling a bit, just a little bit, and again, picking and choosing. But like you, my biggest passion is figuring out how we can use sports to elevate girls and women, and there's a lot of action out there right now in that arena.
Yeah, and you're doing so much for it already. I feel like you already have such a legacy in sports, but how do you want to be remembered by the sports community and those outside of it?
Yeah, I mean, I hope there's still a lot more to go in terms of, opportunities to have impact. I think that's the greatest thing in life. If you can have impact and, as I said, put the team first and always be a kind, empathetic leader that really focuses on making the organization better, I think that would be a great legacy to have. Again, these jobs are hard. They're a grind. They're tons of travel. There's a lot of media attention and scrutiny and all those things. But I think if you just know what you believe in and you put your head down and just try to do the best you can and let the chips sort of fall where they may, is what I tell my kids all the time. So I have to live that the same way and, be grateful for the opportunities that you have to intersect with amazing people who, like you, who have great passion for what you're doing and have a calling to have impact through sport.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It was really nice talking to you, Mollie.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great.